Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to the BSC Club members. Thank you so much for joining us for this unique tour of the exhibition of Sze'S. I'm sure most of you know the artist. She lives and works in New York, and she already had an exhibition in Fondation Cartier in 1999. She represented the United States at the Venice Biennale Pavilion, which most of you saw, I'm sure. And now she came back after all these years for a fantastic installation curated by Leanne Sacramone. Welcome, Leanne Sacramone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are joined also by Johan Legris. I'm going to start by Leanne. Leanne, you are a curator. You went to the Sorbonne, like me, many years ago. You worked at the Centre Pompidou together with me again many years ago, and you were part of this fantastic exhibition Mission pour l'an 2000, which was called La Beauté in Avignon, curated by Jean Deloisy, which was a fabulous exhibition. And I'm sure the catalog is run out, but we should one of those days have another Zoom about only that exhibition, which was a must. And now you're going to present Sze'S. Johan Legris, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again for organizing this webinar for the Fondation Cartier. You are also an art historian, and you worked previously at the Fondation Albert et Annette Giacometti in Paris before you have joined the Fondation Cartier. You are in charge of VIP and the private circle of members. And you are going to tell a few words about the foundation. So we are going to have a tour of the exhibition. And if you have questions, you can use the chat box and write your questions. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. And for the time being, I let you to have your platform. I'm going to mute myself so we don't have so much noise around. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Pierre. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Joanne. I'm the Fondation Cartier internal communication and VIP treatment manager. And so I will speak to you briefly about the Foundation as a Parisian and worldwide institution and our exhibition program before giving the floor to Leanne. So it's a real pleasure to have been invited. Let me start by thanking Anne-Pierre Delbigem very warmly for asking the Fondation Cartier to participate in this webinar. And I would like also to thank all the BNC club members for joining us today in these challenging times, particularly now for the last announcement. And especially here in Paris, we know how important it is to organize this new type of conversation, digital ones, around artists. So yes, Fondation Cartier is a private cultural foundation created by the Maison Cartier in 1984 and founded by Alain-Dominique Perrin, president of the Fondation Cartier, and directed by Hervé Chandès, the general director. The Fondation is a very multidisciplinary and explores topics that extend behind the visual arts. We try to plunge visitors into uncharted territories. So yes, the institution is located since 1994 in the heart of Paris. And we offer an exciting program of contemporary art exhibition in the 1,200 square meters of this beautiful space in an architecturally groundbreaking building designed by the French star architect Jean Nouvel. So the transparent glass exhibition space opened up to the large garden and provide a unique space for the artists to create and present their work. So as a result, the building is in a perpetual metamorphosis according to the time or day or night. Every project provides new possibilities for reinventing the space each time. So since its creation in 1984, the Fondation adopted founding principles that still define our cultural program today, driven by constant spirit of inquiry and curiosity. Forever innovative, we like to foster unusual and unexpected encounters between artists, scientists, philosophers, musicians, intellectuals, architects from around the world. We often ask artists to create site-specific works and installations, such as Sze'S that you will discover later with Leanne on the ground floor. So the especially commissioned works of art are then acquired by the Fondation and thus continue to enrich the collection. Thanks to these many interaction and acquisition over the last 35 years, the Fondation has assembled a very unique collection, and which continues to develop over the time. Today, the collection maintains 2,000 works by 500 artists with 50 different nationalities. As you can see, the Fondation embraces incredibly diverse forms of creativity, the visual arts, the science, architecture, design, fashion, and cinema. It also engaged with environmental questions and anthropological and scientific concerns. So we have, let me briefly mention some of the famous ones here. The Unknown Quantity exhibition in 2002, the Native Land exhibition about migration due to the climate crisis, deforestation, endangered languages, the Mathematica Beautiful Elsewhere exhibition in 2011, which encouraged encounters between mathematicians and artists, institutions like the European Space Agency. And more recently, the Trees exhibition in 2018, bringing together a community of artists, botanists, philosophers, mathematicians also as well. The philosopher, the Fondation echoes to the latest scientific research that shades new light on trees. And last year, we presented Claudia Anduja's The Yanomami Struggle. It was the largest exhibition today dedicated to the photographer. For over 5 decades, she has devoted her life to photographing and protecting the Yanomami, one of the Brazil's largest indigenous group. And moreover, always keen on engaging with many different audience, we succeed in sharing fantastic photographic work of African photographers like Malik Sidibé, Sendou Keita, and appeal to also architecture connoisseurs like Junya Ishigami from Japan, or for example, Freddy Mamani from Bolivia. We also introduce visitors to the world of design. We do that with a designer such as the Australian designer Mark Newson. And we took the time to share little known aspects of the work of Agnès Varda, Jean-Paul Gaultier, Patti Smith, David Lynch, not forgetting all the others. So the Foundation's resolutely international approach make us travel all the time as we go all over the world to meet and foster relationships with artists, institutions. We organize many traveling exhibitions as well in many cities like Tokyo, Buenos Aires, Seoul, Shanghai. And in Europe, we particularly cooperating with the Triennale di Milano, the Design and Art Museum in Italy. And we joined forces with the Triennale for an 8-year partnership. And we are jointly curated programs since last October, And we launched our partnership with the Claudia Anduja Yanomami Struggle exhibition that traveled in Italy. If the sanitary measures allowed it, we will open in May or maybe a little bit later, Les Citoyens, the citizens, created by Guillermo Cuitca. The Argentinian artist will show art of 28 artists of the collection. And in China, we have close ties with the Power Station of Art since 2018 as well. This summer, fingers crossed, the Power Station of Art and the Fondation Cartier will present the exhibition Trees again, with more than 200 works by more than 30 artists from China, Latin America, India, Iran, various countries in Europe. Again, trees aims to reveal the beauty and biological diversity of these heroes of nature, which are today being threatened by the large-scale deforestation. Such a long-term partnerships are a key part of the Foundation's international strategy. We have also a very dense program of exhibition and events includes nomadic nights and the nights of uncertainty, which have been holding annually since 20 years now, and during which we invite also artists from contemporary art scene to fill the Fondation Cartier exhibition space and garden for one night, and bringing together all this community to think and dream together. With the pandemic situation, the nomadic nights turned digital, and we developed an ambitious specific digital project with live-streamed walk-through conversation around the performing arts and concerts, but also encounters rendezvous with our new publication online called Art Book Series, and around our program exhibition unfortunately closed until today, such as the fantastic new augmented reality app we have created with Sze'S work called Night Vision, and more recently the new online project celebrating Artavas Peléchian through a digital project dedicated to his life and work. You can discover all these online projects which are available on the Fondation Cartier's website and our social media. So to conclude, I hope I won't be too long. We are very happy to announce the Fondation Cartier has asked British artist Damien Hirst to show his newest painting this summer in an exhibition called Cherry Blossom, the result of 3 years of intense work in his London studio. So we are very exciting that Cherry Blossoms mark the artist's first museum exhibition in France. So, all right, so thank you all very much for your attention. I enjoyed telling you a little bit about the Fondation Cartier, and I hope you enjoyed learning about it. I will now give the floor to Leanne, and we strongly hope that you will have the opportunity to come to Paris very soon. So thank you, and see you very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. And thank you, Anne-Pierre, for inviting us this evening. I'm going to start out by just introducing you to Sze'S, giving you a little bit of background on Sze'S' work and her history with us at the Foundation. And then we're going to enter into the spaces with a video we made specifically for this webinar presentation. So for those of you who don't know Sze'S' work, Sze'S is an American sculptor. She's best known for her intricate installations that blur the boundaries between painting, sculpture, and architecture. She joins together commonplace objects, everyday objects that like ladders, fans, plastic water bottles, candy, Q-tips, boxes. And with these, she creates elaborate structures that engage with their architectural settings and implicate the viewer. Her artistic references are as diverse and sprawling as her installations, and to cite just a few, she is inspired by the work of Bernini, the Baroque sculptor, Cubism, Constructivism, Chinese scroll painting. Sze'S is actually of Chinese origin. Japanese gardens. Sze'S spent a year in Japan and studied Ikebana and the Japanese garden. And she's also very interested, of course, in the work of many contemporary artists, including Fischli and Weiss and Felix Gonzalez Torres, for example. Born and brought up in Boston, Sze'S studied architecture at Yale University and painting at the School of Visual Arts in New York. She first attracted critical attention in the late 90s as a graduate student when she made an installation by fashioning hundreds of tiny objects using only toilet paper and her own saliva. And as Anne-Pierre mentioned earlier, she rapidly gained international recognition and represented the US in the 2013 Venice Biennale. And her work can be found in major institutions around the world, as well as in public space. She recently completed a monumental sculpture for the new terminal at LaGuardia Airport called Shorter Than a Day. as well as a large-scale mural for the 96th Street subway station in New York City. Hopefully, you will be able to travel soon and see these really beautiful works. She, as also Anne-Pierre mentioned, she currently lives and works in New York, where she's also a professor of visual art at Columbia University. And she's married to an oncologist. She's very interested in science, Sarah, as we'll see a bit later. And she's married to a well-known oncologist called Siddhartha Mukherjee. So the Fondation Cartier has a long history with Sarah dating back 20 years. Her first exhibition with us took place in 1999 when she was still an emerging artist. We offered her the entire ground floor space of our building, and investing such a vast transparent space is a daunting prospect even for the most experienced artists, but Sarah really met this challenge with brio. She created an installation called Everything That Rises Must Converge, named after a short story by Flannery O'Connor. And she constructed this installation using aluminum ladders, as well as many of her signature objects, such as plants, lamps, and different kinds of tools. The installation was dynamic and gravity defying. It looks, as you can see, a little bit like a tornado that's been suspended in space. And the installation extended upwards to the ceiling and even outwards into the garden. The work is now an important part of our collection, and it has been reinstalled in exhibitions of our collection abroad, most recently at the Seoul Museum of Art in 2017 and the Power Station of Art in Shanghai in 2018. Now, one of the things that defines us as an institution is that we frequently return to and expand upon the work of an artist we have collaborated with in the past. And in the last 5 years, Sarah's work has taken an exciting new turn. As a response to our increasing exposure to images on internet and in social media, Sarah began to reintroduce video into her sculptural work. And she wanted to explore how this onslaught of images in our daily lives has affected our relationship to time, memory, and the material world. This led her to create the piece you see here, a piece called Measuring Stick. It was the first work of a series she would eventually call the Timekeeper series. And this work was very multifaceted. It's modeled on the artist's own film editing desk, and on top of this desk, she constructed a structure of a metallic structure that's very cubic in form, and then it's very hard to see here, and then she inserted pieces of paper into this structure and projected many images on these different pieces of paper. And that was the first work of this very important series. And there also were a lot of videos and objects that were related to time in this installation. That's why she called it the Timekeeper series. And this work would involve with each new iteration. Moving on to the next. Thank you. You can see here how the series evolved from a desk to more elaborate structures, and from projections, video projections that were concentrated in the center of the piece on the sculpture and moving outwards as she develops the piece to the walls surrounding the gallery space. Moving on. So we were interested in seeing these new ideas Sarah was developing with video in her sculptures take shape in our spaces. So we invited her to create 2 new works at the Fondation Cartier. The exhibition Night and Today is the result of this commission to the artist and represents the 9th iteration of the Timekeeper series. Here you see a view of the installation from the outside at night. The title of the exhibition Night and Today refers to the way in which the installations are experienced differently according to whether it is nighttime or daytime. Sarah's point of departure was Jean Nouvel's layered glass facades that blur the inside and outside and create what Sarah calls a mirage effect that confuses reality and its reflection. For instance, when you're looking at the building, sometimes you can't distinguish a real tree from the reflection of a tree, a real cloud from the reflection of one. So Sarah decided to play with these reflective surfaces by casting moving images onto the building's windows. And thanks to a special holographic film that we applied to the facade, these moving images can be seen more clearly inside the building during the daytime and outside at night. And by marking in this way the passage of night into day and day into night, Sarah wanted the building itself to become a sort of timekeeper. In a second, I'm going to start the video and show you the two works she created inside, which she titled Twice Twilight and Tracing Fallen Sky. Their forms are inspired by the planetarium and Foucault's pendulum, which are scientific tools that are also related to time in that they show the movement of the stars in the sky, in the cosmos, and the Foucault's pendulum demonstrates the Earth's rotation. They reflect Sarah's interest in the idea that sculpture can relate to the scientific model and that it can be used to explore concepts such as time and memory that are otherwise difficult to grasp. Sarah also imagined our approach to her installation in relationship to the building and in terms of shifts of scale. Scale is a very important part of Sarah's art, and she likes to quote the sculptor Robert Smithson, who said, "Size determines the object, but scale determines art. If we consider an object in terms of scale and not size, a room can be made to take on the immensity of the solar system." So now I am going to start the video. So just be patient with me 1 second while I share screens with you. And I would just like someone to confirm to me that they can see the video.
Yes, we can see it. If you can zoom in. Yeah, so we have a...
Is that good? Can you see it clearly?
Yeah, we can see
Yes.
clearly, and just put full screen and that's it.
That's full screen, huh?
Okay, good, great.
Is that good?
Yeah.
It's not blurry?
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Leanne.
You're welcome, you're welcome. So, as we enter the building through the large glass and steel framework that's reflecting, as you can see, the sky and the clouds, we will see Twice Twilight as an overall structure at the scale of the room before moving toward it to zoom in on all of its details. Sarah wanted this experience to feel like a shifting from the macro to the micro, from the vast scale of the sky reflected in the building to the minute projection of an image showing, for example, the growth of a spore. To draw us along this path, the artist has projected moving images in a diagonal along the floor from the entrance. One of these videos on the floor is a playful reference to popular culture because it comes from the opening credits of the Netflix series, The Crown. It's a moment where the liquid gold solidifies and turns into the crown. And this video actually introduces us to another important theme of these installations, and that is the importance of the material world in our lives and the artist's role in transforming these materials. Now let's look at Twice Twilight from a distance. It is an intricate scaffolding made of stainless steel rods and bamboo. It's approximately 5.5 meters in diameter. It appears to be delicate and light, and it has been suspended from the ceiling to hang just above the floor, but it is actually quite heavy and weighs almost 1 metric ton. We perceive the scaffolding as spherical in shape because of the way the artist has attached pieces of torn paper to its structure, which the artist has used to project moving images. In his essay for the catalog, Bruno Latour likens this delicate spherical structure to the very slim biofilm of the Earth, which scientists call the critical zone. He feels that Sarah's work represents this fragile and complex layer of life more accurately than traditional representations of the Earth as a monumental solid globe, which makes Sarah's work, I think, a wonderful metaphor for the precarious state of our Earth today during the environmental crisis. Sarah spends many hours in her studio meticulously planning her installations, and this one is no exception. The sphere came in sections in 32 crates along with the pieces of paper attached to it, and many of the objects also already attached to it. That said, Sarah never really finishes an installation until she is on site. The COVID crisis made it difficult for us to know if Sarah would be able to come for the installation, so we set up cameras so she could guide the installation from her studio in New York. But luckily at the last minute, we got the authorization for her to come. And this was really important because she made quite a few last minute changes to the piece that were very important. So let's move in a bit closer to get a better look at the sculpture. As you can see, Sarah has left an opening in the sphere where we can enter to look more closely at the videos. She wants us to feel nested inside the sculpture. Sarah got many of these videos from internet, or she filmed them herself. She used video mapping, which is a technology that enables the projection of moving images on an irregular surface and allows you to adjust these images accurately to the shape of this irregular surface, which are the torn pieces of paper here. There are 45 projectors total in the installation. Each one can project around 5 images. In these videos, Sarah follows a long tradition of artists who explore the theme of the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water are many of the images you see here. And they portray natural phenomena such as the movement of clouds, the reflections of light on water, the flickering flame of a candle, the swirling of a tornado, or the spouting of a geyser, for example. Other videos show people doing things like shaving chalk, cutting things, or cooking. Sarah is very interested in our human need for physicality and contact with materials in a world that has become dominated by images. And she is fascinated by a trend that you might know of called ASMR, which stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. It basically describes an agreeable tingling sensation you have at the back of your neck when you hear certain sounds or see certain things. And many people make videos for YouTube to provoke this sensation and help people relax. And Sarah has included some of these in her installation. Another reference for Sarah in these videos is the work of the sculptor Richard Serra. In the late 60s, he translated a list of verbs: to shave, to throw, to cut, and to sweep, into a series of sculptural actions that he filmed. Sarah loves this idea that sculpture can simply be an action or a gesture. And if you look closely, you can see that some of these projections, some of these pieces of paper where the projections are, have still images printed onto them. As I mentioned earlier, Sarah is interested in how sculptures can, like scientific models, represent complex ideas. And one concept explored here, in addition to time, is memory. These stills allude to the phenomenon of the after image, whereby an image continues to appear in our mind's eye even after we can no longer physically see it. This persistence of vision in our memory is what allows us to fill the gaps between film frames and thus perceive movement in a series of still images. Inside and around Twice Twilight, Sarah has included a variety of different objects such as lamps, bowls of water, a fan, and nests. Sarah wants to give her sculpture a life or ecosystem of its own. This is why her sculptures often include their own lighting and, in the artist's words, their own weather created by the wind from the fans. Sarah has also included a sawhorse, you can see here in the installation, and she's put some of the postcards we made actually for the exhibition, and also torn pieces of paper, which gives the piece the feeling of a workspace or a work in process. There's also a wire cube you see here with string, she's wound it, that she has placed on a piece of paper so we can see the drawing made by the shadow. As I said earlier, Sarah likes to blur disciplines and explore how a sculpture can become a drawing through the shadow here, how video can become a sculpture, or how paint, which you see here, a blue piece of paint hanging from the structure, actually becomes sculptural. Sarah also included small models that look like miniature versions of Twice Twilight. One of them, the one you see here, has tiny video projections just like the larger version. These models draw us into the work and captivate our attention because I think we seem to be universally fascinated by something handmade that is so detailed and minute. Sarah considers these models as part of the live environment she is trying to create. She thinks of them as smaller offshoots of the larger versions of the sculpture that could potentially multiply and grow. And here you see a video she made when she was on site at the Foundation. It shows, I'll just stop for a second. It shows a piece of paper, I'll go back. It shows a piece of paper burning. She took this video when she was here, and she projected it right underneath the sphere. As you look around, you'll see also that the artist has made no attempt to hide the projectors or the cables, which are an integral part of the work. Behind the sculpture, there's a rotating tower that you see here with a series of projectors piled onto it, and these are the projectors which are casting moving images onto the glass walls of the building. The images collide and they pursue one another, they change shape, they become alternately sharp and blurry. And one beautiful effect of the piece is that when you are there, or when you're on site, you can become caught in the light of the projectors, and thus you yourself become part of the piece, and you become confused with the projections and the shadows of the structure itself. So let's look at some of the images projected onto the glass walls. Let me stop this for a second. Just you see here, I see with my arrow, that's a video of our own garden at the Fondation Cartier. Sarah always includes videos also that are made on site in these installations. And when we began working on the project, Sarah asked us to install cameras in our garden to photograph it over the 4 seasons. And over a period of a year, so these pictures, these cameras took pictures of the garden every hour or so. And Sarah created a time-lapse film that shows the cyclical time of the seasons. And overlapping that video, you also saw probably some birds earlier, white birds. Let me just go back to the white birds flying. You see those white birds? That's actually a film made from Etienne Jules Maré's studies of bird flight in the late 19th century. And Sarah here is drawing a parallel between the late 19th century, when inventions like cinema were revolutionizing our relationship to time, and today when internet and social media are doing the same. I'd also just like to show you one other video. I'm going to go back. Sorry. I don't know if you see the finger here. Sarah videoed herself poking her finger in water, and the idea is like she's poking through a screen, and she says this is just a very simple physical experience, just touching the water. And for her, it's a metaphor for the whole installation, that video. So we're going to go to the other wall now in a second, you'll see. And on the other wall, we're going to see an object crusher coming along sometime soon. Here it is. I'm going to stop so you can see it very well. Oh, there. That's the object crusher. And it's destroying a light bulb. You can see it destroying a few other things as well as it moves along the wall. And I think this video is really just fascinating to look at. It's very strange. I don't know who uses these object crushers. But it reminds me of a photograph by Harold Edgerton, whom Sarah has referenced in other works of this series. Harold Edgerton was the father of strobe photography, and he photographed a light bulb being crushed by a hammer, and it really reminds me of that photograph. And here also you see a magician performing a card trick using sleight of hand. I like to think of this as a reference to the idea of the artist as magician. Critics have often compared Sarah's way of transforming everyday materials into something magical to the magician's use of sleight of hand. And if you listen closely, you can hear that the work also has sound. These are sounds the artist has recorded as she was making the piece. It's like you hear buzzing noises, clicking noises, ticking. Sarah has long been interested in the Golden Record, a time capsule that was launched into outer space with the Voyager spacecraft in 1977. And the Golden Record was intended to portray the diversity of life on Earth and included not only a wide selection of images, natural sounds and music, but also a really surprising array of very commonplace noises, like the sounds of tools or motors or trains. And so there's a sense in this piece that these recorded sounds could be the sounds of our earth, however mundane they may be. And if you stay here for a little while, you'll notice that the sound will go silent every minute. This happens every minute or so. And when that happens, most of the images in the installation are replaced by birds in flight. We saw them a bit earlier, but we'll see them again. The artist wanted to create, here they are on the walls. The artist wanted to create here a sense of anticipation and suspense, the kind of anticipation or breathless feeling you feel when you see a real flock of birds in nature. Now we're going to go see the second installation, Tracing Fallen Sky. And this installation is based on a Foucault's pendulum, as I mentioned earlier, which is a timekeeper in the sense that it measures the rotation of the earth. While in the other gallery, Twice Twilight seems to envelop or nest you, this piece was designed to draw you in like a Narcissus pool. The shiny sculptural element that you can see slightly off center is made up of over 100 pieces of stainless steel. The model for this element was originally made of clay, and she used the trajectory of the pendulum to determine the geometry of its concave shape. She likes this idea of a sculpture being able to make itself. The sculpture looks a bit like cracked earth, and Sarah wanted to have the eroded feel of a geological formation. She was thinking, for example, of Giant's Causeway in Ireland, or perhaps an archaeological site like Stonehenge when she was making this piece. It is surrounded, this metal sculpture is surrounded by marble powder. And in the center, where you see here where there is no powder, it's actually an imprint of the steel sculpture that forms something that looks like a Venn diagram. Projected onto the installation are a variety of videos. The two large luminous circles, let me go back so you can see those better. Those two large luminous circles you see show a film Sarah made of the sky above her apartment at different times of the day and night. And other videos show materials in transformation again, and you see magic trick here, for example, and ink being a spot of ink, an iPhone screen here. Other videos show materials again in transformation, molten glass being poured, paint being splattered, cells in a petri dish also. And around the work, the artist has placed a variety of objects, some of which are remnants of the things she used while she was making either the installation or the videos. They're salt shakers, brooms, boxes from the technical equipment, pieces of metal. Sarah often talks about how she wants her sculptures to demonstrate human behavior, and it looks in this piece like she's, again, it looks like a work site, or she's really showing us traces of human activity. Above the installation, the pendulum swings not in a regular back and forth manner. Here, of course, it's not really measuring the rotation of the earth. It's a bit erratic, the movement of the pendulum. It's guided by a motor, and it seems to be chasing a video. You see that little white circle. It's actually the sun turning into the moon, and it seems to be chasing the sun turning into the moon, but it actually isn't. And there's something, I'll stop here just for a second. There's something, seems to imply that there's something a bit futile perhaps in our efforts to measure time and space, the erratic movement of the pendulum. Sarah often uses the word teeter when she's discussing her work to describe the way in which she strives to create an equilibrium between two opposing states in her work. You can see in these two installations how her work teeters between the micro and the macro, the material and the immaterial, the technological and the handmade. So why is Sarah interested in teetering? I think she wants to keep us on our toes, alert and asking questions. Questions like, what does it mean to live in a world of screens and images? How has this changed our experience of time and memory? What has become of our relationship to the material world? I think her work really gives us food for thought, as well as a moment of great beauty and pleasure and poetry. And that's something I think we really need right now in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you so much. So maybe you will stop the film.
It's not stopped?
We are going to stop sharing, and we go back.
There we go.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Leanne. That was an amazing presentation. It's a fantastic exhibition. And I don't know if it's possible that I know that you have invited Bruno Latour. He wrote for the catalog, as you mentioned, but he's a very important French philosopher and anthropologist, and you invited him in a tour with the artist, a film tour of the exhibition. If by any chance that link is available on YouTube, maybe I could share it with the members. And I had the opportunity. I was lucky enough to be able to see this installation in real, which was a fantastic privilege, and thank you again. But what Bruno Latour said that I thought it was very interesting. Of course, he's talking about a nest, a globe. Is he talking about a globe or an anti-globe?
He's talking about the critical zone mainly. The idea is the critical zone is that thin biofilm. It's where we live on Earth, and it's actually very slim in relationship to the cosmos. It's very small, actually, the critical zone. And he thinks that Sarah's work represents more accurately this idea of the critical zone, of this idea of the Earth as a fragile biofilm. And that's why he thinks of it as an anti-globe, because a globe, it looks monumental. We have the impression when we see the globe from outer space that life is that whole globe. But it's not. It's actually just a slim biofilm. So that's what he's talking about in his essay.
Yes, so I understood correctly. So he's talking about an anti-globe, about life, fragility, life on Earth, the resistance of life. And would you say that Sarah wants to show the contradictions in our societies, or is it more oppositions for you? You mentioned earlier that she's between the micro and micro, the material and the unmaterial, the handmade and the technology. If you look at the installation, some of the pieces are really handmade and with very sort of poverty materials and very, the others were like, we can buy them at Lidl, not at Monoprix, it would be too, like very, and in the same time, it's very highly sophisticated and a crazy, incredible technology. So these two words cohabits. I don't know if you say that in English, but they, and would they oppose each other, or she wants to underline that they live together?
They live together. She likes this idea of teetering. The thing could go one way or the other, and her work is a fragile equilibrium. Things could go one way or the other. She wants you to feel that instability. But there's no, I wouldn't say there's any direct, this is, of course, Bruno Latour's, I would insist upon the fact that this is Bruno Latour's interpretation, and Sarah really wants to allow viewers to interpret her work as they feel. And I think that's what all great artwork does. There's no message. But if it's not the message of the artist, this idea of, questioning, continuous questioning and experimentation. And that's what Sarah is interested in, I think.
And the last question would be, you've been working on this exhibition for 4 years or more?
About 4 years, I would say. 3 to 4 years. It's hard for me to remember, but yeah.
And how about her? Does she has a very complete studio full of assistants, or is she likes to, you know, like work like a bird, taking pieces by pieces and building this nest?
Well, she has a studio, and they work very hard on many aspects of the piece. It's not a very big studio, maybe between, you know, 10 people maximum, not all of them permanent. And they're working on different aspects of the piece. For example, her studio manager was helping us find the right film to put on the windows, for example. You know, some of the others are working on small miniature models, or glazing parts of the sculpture, or other things. But of course, Sarah works also a lot. You know, she preserves herself and keeps a lot of time to work on her own in her studio. She paints. She's also a printmaker. She's interested, as you can see here, in video. She's been interested in video for a very long time. And she experimented with it at the very beginning of her career and stopped for a long time before she reintegrated it in her work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she's very active, and studio assistants are as well.
Mm-hmm. So of course we cannot wait to go back to New York. To see the and land at LaGuardia Airport. Usually no one wants to land there, but now we all want to land in LaGuardia to see her fantastic installation, take the tube and live a fabulous, fantastic, rich life. And in the meantime, so I'm going to thank you so much, Leanne Sacramone, again, for this fantastic and very complete presentation. I think there's not so many more questions after all you said. Thank you also so much, Joanne Legris, for your presentation of the Fondation Cartier.
Thank you.
The exhibition that is going to be the next exhibition, as you understood, is Damien Hirst on the blossom. Is it cherry blossom or just
cherry blossom?
Cherry blossom. So in Japan. So that's another aspect of Damien Hirst that you know, we know him very well here in the UK, but it's always a big discovery, and it's always fantastic to learn what the Fondation Cartier is doing everywhere in Milano, at the Triennale, at the power station in Shanghai, the museum. So, and the collection is very important. It's always been very important. We remember when the Fondation was in Jouy-en-Josas. It was far, but we would go there. You're so lucky to be in this fantastic building. Oh yes, I have a last question. Is that until when is the installation? Yes, Sarazi exhibition in Paris.
The end of May.
The end of May. So yes, the end of May. So now it's a 1 month lockdown in France, but as soon as the lockdown is,
we are waiting for you.
Yes, exactly. Welcome, and we'll be there to see it. So thank you again. Have a great evening, everybody, and thank you all for joining. And we really had a fantastic time. Thank you.